Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I just fed the dogs, cleaned the kitchen, took the trash out. The kitchen is super clean right now, and I was lighting some candles. And so I thought, I'm gonna make a cup of coffee, and I'm using my new swig cup that I think that I've only used like one other time. And I bought a bunch of coffee earlier this year at Tuesday morning. Well, earlier this fall. At Tuesday morning, I showed it in a video on my Peter Does Stuff channel. So I was like, I'm gonna make one of those coffees today. So I made apple pie. Should we try it and see what it tastes like? I mean, it straight up smells like apple pie. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the, what do you call it? The smelly stickers. Do you remember those smelly stickers back in the day? The one for apple pie. That's what it smells like. Okay, let's taste it and see if it tastes like, the coffee tastes like apple pie. This is kind of like a review video. It kind of just tastes like coffee. I mean, like, oh, there's like a little bit of a spicy aftertaste to it. Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, that's real good. Well, it's interesting. I like it. It's good because it's kind of like a mix between like coffee, this is gonna sound so strange, with like an apple cider aftertaste to it, or you know, but anyway, I like it, that's good. Okay, so let's get into, for a generic coffee, I think that's pretty good. Let's get into today's video. I brought all kinds of books with me today. I brought these three, I brought these two. So let's just see which one speaks to me first, and that one is The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beattie. It's November 3rd. Let's get into this and see what Melody Beattie has to say to us today. November 3rd, denial. Denial is fertile breeding ground for the behaviors we call codependent, controlling, focusing on others, and neglecting ourselves. Illness and compulsive or addictive behaviors can also emerge during denial. Denial can be confusing because it resembles sleeping. We're not really aware what we're doing until we're done doing it. Forcing ourselves, or anyone else, to face the truth usually doesn't help. We won't face the facts until we are ready. Neither, it seems, will anyone else. We may admit to the truth for a moment, but we won't let ourselves know what we know until we feel safe, secure, and prepared enough to deal and cope with it. Well, that's a really powerful statement. Talking to friends who know, love, support, encourage, and affirm us helps. Being gentle, loving, and affirming with ourselves helps. Asking ourselves and our higher power to guide us into and through change helps. The first step toward acceptance is denial. The first step toward moving through denial is accepting that we may be in denial and then gently allowing ourselves to move through. God, help me feel safe and secure enough today to accept what I need to accept. That's a really, really powerful, my Lord. My glasses were clinging onto my shirt and then they fell. It's a really, really powerful statement. And you know, just to kind of like piggyback off the last thing that was said where it talked about the first step toward acceptance is denial. The first step toward moving through denial is accepting that we may be in denial. One of the most powerful lessons that I have learned in recovery is that I don't necessarily have to be ready and willing to do the work today, but if I am willing to be ready and willing, like that's the step before. I know that that's going to sound crazy, right? But like, let's say if there's something in your life that you need to do, right? Like, let's say if you're like needing to go to marriage counseling, or maybe you've gone to marriage counseling and you're in a relationship that you feel has run its course and you're like, I know it's time for me to go, but, or a job, you know, or whatever the situation may be, you know, moving, it doesn't have to always be something negative. It could be like moving into a place of your own, or, you know what I mean? Like all different kinds of things, or, you know, this, you know, super adventurous risk that you are excited to take that might be positive for your job, or, you know, beginning to write a book, or, you know, sing a song, or play an instrument, or start an art, or something like that. Whatever it is, right? The first step may be too hard for us, but there's always a step before that, and that step is I am willing to be willing, right? Like I'm willing to prepare myself to be willing to do that. I know that sounds crazy, but I've actually had to do that quite a bit with things in my life that I was like, you know what, I'm not ready to do it today, but I'm willing to prepare myself to be ready for it. And then when the day comes, I'll know that I'm prepared and ready to do those things, you know? I think denial is hard. You know, we talk about denial in so many different ways, you know, like denial is not a river in Egypt, you know, is a recovery statement. But like when, you know, you're in an active addiction, you know, people say, I guess I was just in so much denial, like I just didn't know that it was as bad as it was. I struggle with that statement just from my own personal story. Now, I know that there are a lot of people that relate to that story, but for me, that was not the case. For me, I knew my using was a problem. Everybody was telling me that my using was a problem. I knew it was a problem. I had tried to quit so many times on my own and I couldn't, right? So when you have family members and friends around you that they're not willing to stop using or stop whatever their destructive behavior is, and it's really frustrating for you because you're wanting to control that. You have to remember the 3 C's, okay? I didn't control it, or I didn't cause it, I can't control it, and I can't cure it, okay? So when you look at that situation like that and you realize this person is continuing to hurt themselves and others, but I can't control that, right? Like that's the powerless part of letting go. That's where you go, okay, I'm letting go of the situation. The denial is thinking that you can actually do something about it. Like I am a firm believer, and hey, listen, as a person in recovery that in a 12-step program, like I did not get this for many, many years. Like when I would have friends of mine go back out, I would be like, I would call them and I'd be like, you know, do you want me to take you to a meeting, blah, 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 whatever. And you know, I can remember my sponsor at the time and also my best friend would say, when they've had enough pain, when they have felt enough pain, I'm like in my head, I'm like going to all these different stories of people and relationships I've had. But, you know, they would say when they've had enough pain, they'll stop. They haven't had enough pain yet, you know? They're not ready to stop. And like, that's so hard because when you're living in it, it's like, no, that's not the case. And you know, even as a person in recovery that knew this to be true of myself and others, my mom was, you know, a person in sobriety, that there was a part of me that believed if I just loved them enough, or if they just loved me enough, that they would stop. And, you know, I look back on that and I think, that was me totally living into it. I laugh, right? Because what a ludicrous statement. There are a lot of things that love can do in this world, but I do not believe that one of those things is that love can cure addiction. I just don't believe that. I don't. I don't believe that if loving another person would stop them from using drugs and alcohol as an addict, there would be no treatment programs. There would be no 12-step programs, you know? There would be no deaths that were happening from overdoses. And so it breaks my heart. But yet I lived in that denial for so long of thinking like, if my mom loved me enough, she wouldn't do this to me, you know? And that's just, it's not the case. It's just not true. And denial goes into so many other areas as well, as far as grieving, you know? It's like, I think I was numb for so long, not when my mom passed away, not so much because I was in denial, like I think maybe sometimes the denial, pulling my shirt all day today because the shirt's come a little tight. I think the denial that we talk about with somebody passing away with grief is kind of misconstrued sometimes. Like, I thought for a long time that denial meant, like, I'm in denial that person is gone. And I do think that it can mean literal denial, right? Like where you think the phone is going to ring and it's going to be them. Like, I do believe that people experience that literal form of denial because I've heard people talk about that, right? I did not. And I don't know, like, if it was because I saw my mother pass or I don't know what it was, but I never suffered from that kind of literal grief or literal denial. I mean, at times I would like be like, oh, I want to pick up the phone and call my mom, and like for a split second I would be like, oh, you know, and then I remember that she was gone. But for me, that wasn't the kind of denial that I accepted or that I struggled with. I think in retrospect, because I used to say I never went through denial. Well, I think I absolutely did. I think the kind of denial that I was going through was that everything that I knew to be true, you know, from birth until the time that and I'm not talking about the things I found out after my mom passed away, like my grandma and all that kind of stuff, right? I'm talking about like everything that I in my core fundamentally knew, like who I was overturned in like one split second when my mom passed away. And I was like in complete denial that my world had completely shifted. If you have not lost a parent, First of all, people always say to me, oh my God, I don't know what I would do if I lost my mom. I don't know what I'm going to do. You are going to lose them at some point unless you precede them in death, right? I mean, that's just a reality. My sponsor says to me all the time, we all have an expiration date. And I hate when she says it to me, but it's the absolute truth. And the reality is that they are going to pass away sometime. And the reality is you're going to get through it. You're going to be okay. Like, you're going to, trust me. I thought it was the one thing. I always thought, like, if my mom or my dad passes away or my stepmom, like, I'll drink through it. Like, I just can't stay sober through that. And it was the last thing on my mind. You're going to be fine. Trust me. There will be people around you, and even if there's not, you'll put one foot in front of the other, and you'll do okay, right? And other days will come. Yeah, it's weird. It's the most surreal feeling. Like, we don't even talk about it, like, in a real way, okay? It's weird. It's like, this person that I've had this connection to with my entire life, oh my God, my battery is dying. This person that I've had this connection to my entire life is gone, like, forever and ever gone. Like, I'll never talk to them again, never hold them, never. It's the weirdest feeling in the entire world, right? But you'll be okay. But I think the denial that I experienced at that time was that the life that I had known previous to that, where my mom was like such a part of that, was over like that. And I think like I didn't know how to transition to the next part. I mean, I was also single. I had also left a 13-year career. So it was like everything in my life was changing, and it was like I was leaving one era and going into another, and I just wasn't prepared for it. And I think I was living in denial. Today I don't do that. You know, today I like to look at reality, and I like to live in cozy mysteries, but who wouldn't, you know? But like, you know, today I like to you know, look at reality and be like, this is what I'm handed. Here's the cards I'm being dealt, and how are we going to put one foot in front of the other and deal with it as much as possible. So before my battery dies, I do want to say this. So as a message to anybody, and I never to my friends say, like, when they say, oh, my mom's driving you crazy, I never say anything to them like, if I could just have one more hour with my mom. Because the reality is, if I could have 1 or 2 more hours with my mom, we'd be hugging and kissing, and then we'd be like arguing, and then we'd be making up, and because that's how our relationship was, you know. But if you have the opportunity and you do have a good relationship with your parent or whoever means something to you, spend time with them while you can. That should be the lesson out of this, right? Is that we should spend more time with the people and the animals and the places that are so dear to our heart. So anyway, I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.